AITA for walking away after my stepdaughter and my wife said I wasn't a real father? I never grew up dreaming of being a father, but the first time I held my wife's daughter's hand, something inside me shifted. Her name was Kaylee. She was 7 years old and had a hell of a temper, with big, brown eyes that made you feel like you owed her an apology the moment you walked into a room. When I started dating her mother, Danielle, I knew they were a package deal, and honestly, I did not mind. I liked the idea of stepping into something already formed and finding a way to belong. I thought love meant adapting. I thought love meant patience. And I had both in abundance, at least at first. Back then, I believed if I tried hard enough, I could earn a place in that little girl's heart. I did not need to be her real father. I just wanted to be someone she trusted. Danielle and I got married after dating for 2 years. By then, I was already paying for after-school care, piano lessons, and the occasional trip to the emergency room when she fell off her bike and scraped her chin. I was the one holding the gauze to her face, whispering, "Are you okay, sweetheart?" When she had nightmares, I was the one rubbing her back, while Danielle slept soundly. I was not a substitute. I was present, committed. I poured every drop of stability I had into that home, and I am not saying I was perfect. I raised my voice sometimes, sure, and I did not always know how to handle her mood swings. But damn it, I tried. Every day, I thought, someday she'll see me. Someday she'll call me dad without wincing. But that day never came. What made it worse, what hollowed out parts of me I did not even know existed, was Danielle's silence. I expected the parenting part to be hard. I did not expect to feel so alone doing it. Whenever I tried to set boundaries or establish a routine, Danielle would undermine me. I would say, "No phones after 9, and she would roll her eyes and say, "Come on, it is not that big of a deal." I would ground Kaylee for talking back, and Danielle would undo it behind my back. When I confronted her, she would just shrug as if I was overreacting. "She is a teenager," she would say. "They are all like that." But it was not simple teenage rebellion. It was open defiance, and worse, Danielle's subtle permission to disrespect me. I did not realize until later that Danielle was not trying to raise a daughter with me. She was trying to maintain control of her daughter, her house, and me. I remember the first serious conversation we had about having our own kids. We had been married for about 3 years, and I had just finished fixing Kaylee's science project for the 3rd time that week. Danielle was sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone, not even looking at me when I said, "I think I want to try for a baby." Full stop. Her thumb paused for half a second before she replied, "We have got enough on our hands." No discussion, no curiosity about why I wanted that, just a flat, dead-end response, as if I had asked her to do the dishes. I did not push it right away. I gave it time. I thought maybe she was not ready. But months turned into years, and every time I brought it up, she would shut it down. She never gave me a real reason, just vague comments about timing, money, and stress. Meanwhile, I was paying the bills, attending parent-teacher conferences, and handling bedtime for a kid who still treated me like a guest in her own home. I kept telling myself things would get better, that Kaylee would mature, that Danielle would come around. But honestly, I think I was lying to myself because the alternative, accepting that I had built my life around 2 people who did not really want me there, was too painful to face. I started noticing how Kaylee introduced me to her friends. "That is just my mom's husband," she would say, like I was the maintenance guy. How Danielle made major parenting decisions without even mentioning them to me. Like the time she let Kaylee skip school for 2 weeks to reset her mental health after a breakup. I did not even find out until I got a call from the school, and when I confronted Danielle, she just said Kaylee needed space. You would not understand. And maybe I did not. Maybe I never would. But I was tired of being treated like an outsider. Still, I stayed. I kept cooking dinner every night. I kept going to every one of Kaylee's recitals, clapping like my life depended on it. I kept paying the bills, fixing leaks, and mowing the lawn, pretending this family actually belonged to me. But every night, I went to sleep next to a woman who no longer touched me unless she needed something. And every morning, I woke up feeling like an intruder in my own home. I wanted to believe I mattered. I wanted to believe all the small sacrifices, the missed vacations, the long hours at work, and the emotional toll meant something. But deep down, I knew. I knew I was the only one playing the long game. The worst part is, I kept smiling. For years, I wore that good stepdad badge like it meant something. I swallowed every slight, every ignored request, and every sarcastic teenage remark because I did not want to be the guy who gives up. I thought if I just held on a little longer, things would change. But what I did not see, what I could not admit, was that Danielle and Kaylee were not waiting for me to step up. They were daring me to leave. And back then, I still did not have the courage to call their bluff. I think the silence wore me down more than the shouting. The kind of silence that is not peaceful. It was strategic, calculated. A cold war between people who shared the same kitchen but had not shared a real moment in months. Whenever I walked into a room, Kaylee would put on her headphones or suddenly find something fascinating on her phone, and Danielle stopped meeting my eyes. She would murmur, "Thanks," when I paid the mortgage or made dinner, but she never said it with any conviction. There was no warmth left, no softness, just a bitter distance, as if we were all just waiting for someone else to speak first so we could fight. And no matter how tough a man thinks he is, when the people in your own house treat you like a ghost, you start to wonder if you are really still alive in it. There were times I tried to pretend everything was okay, like when I would bring home flowers or try to plan a weekend getaway for just Danielle and me. She always found a reason not to go. Kaylee had homework. She was not feeling well. It was not the right time. I stopped asking, because rejection, even when it is sugar-coated, still stings. The dinners were the worst. I would cook for them like it was an act of devotion. I would make grilled salmon the way Danielle liked it, with lemon butter and asparagus on the side. Kaylee would just push it around with her fork or say outright, "Can we just order a pizza instead?" Danielle never corrected her, never said, "Say thank you," or "Eat what is there." She would just sigh and say, "If you do not want it, do not eat it," as if I was the one inconveniencing them with my effort. The change did not happen overnight. It crept in like mold under the drywall. Silent, slow, and toxic. Kaylee grew more and more dismissive, leaving clothes all over the living room, blasting music late at night, and muttering curse words when I asked her to pick up. When I finally raised my voice one night after she called me, "Just the guy who lives here," Danielle stepped in as if I were the one causing the problem. "She is expressing herself," she said. "It is not disrespect. She is just a teenager." I remember standing there, plates still in my hands, watching the two of them defend each other, as if I were a stranger who did not belong. That is when I understood. I was not her husband anymore. I was the help, a man who paid for things and took up space, but whose voice carried no weight in his own house. And the truth is, I was not trying to be an authority figure. I was not demanding loyalty or obedience. I just wanted basic respect. I wanted to be included in conversations, to have a say in decisions that affected all of us. But every time I tried, it was like shouting into a void. Danielle started hiding things from me, appointments, bills, even family events. I found out her sister had come to visit only after seeing a picture on social media. When I asked why she did not tell me, she just shrugged and said, "You have been so busy. I did not think you would care." That casual dismissal was worse than a direct lie. It meant she no longer saw me as someone who mattered, just background noise in the life she had built around herself and her daughter. One night, I came home late from a brutal shift and found Kaylee's boyfriend sitting on the couch with his shoes on the coffee table, holding a beer. A beer. He was 17. I looked at Danielle like, "Seriously?" And she had the nerve to say, "He has been more respectful than you have lately." I felt something inside me break. It was not anger, not even sadness, just a numbness, like I was watching someone else's life and I was just there to observe. I did not yell. I did not kick the kid out. I just walked past them, went into my room, and closed the door. I stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering how I got here. How I went from dreaming of a family to feeling like a stranger under my own roof. One night, shortly after, I even rehearsed leaving. I went as far as packing a bag and checking hotel prices. But then I thought about my dog, Cooper, an old mutt who followed me around like I was the sun, and I thought about how I would probably never see him again if I left. Danielle had already made it clear that everything under that roof belonged to her. The house, the furniture, even the life we had built. So I unpacked the bag. I told myself I would wait a little longer, that maybe things would change. But deep down I knew things were not going to change. I just did not want to admit I was too afraid to leave. But fear has a funny way of turning into resentment when it simmers too long. I stopped engaging. I stopped trying. I would come home, eat dinner in silence, and go straight to bed. Some nights, I slept on the couch just to avoid the emotional chill. I started spending more time at work, picking up extra shifts just to not be home. The silence that used to hurt me now became my shield. I stopped offering advice, stopped suggesting family outings. If they did not want me involved, fine. I would give them exactly what they seemed to want: distance. But even as I pulled away, something inside me began to boil. A slow, simmering rage that I did not know how to handle yet. All I knew was that something had to break. And soon it did. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that already feels heavy before anything even goes wrong. The weather was gray, the air thick with that damp, nagging stillness that made the house feel even more suffocating. I had spent the entire afternoon fixing the damn dishwasher that Kaylee had broken again. Another silent expectation I was supposed to fulfill without gratitude or acknowledgement. Danielle was in the living room, glued to her phone as usual, and Kaylee was upstairs, music so loud it made the cabinets vibrate. I did not even bother asking her to turn it down. I knew what I would get: a sigh and an eye roll, maybe a sarcastic, "God, you are so dramatic." So I waited. I waited until dinner was ready. I waited until I had called them down twice. And they finally shuffled into the kitchen, dragging their feet like it was a chore to sit across from me. Kaylee was picking at her food with that same detached boredom she carried lately, as if everything I did was beneath her. Danielle was not even pretending to smile anymore, just staring at her plate like I was not there. I do not remember what I said that lit the fuse. Something about putting her phone away at the table. That was it. A simple, reasonable request. And Kaylee, without missing a beat, without even looking up, said it. "You are not my real dad. You have no right to tell me what to do." I swear the room went instantly silent, like even the house could not believe she had the nerve to say it out loud. I looked at Danielle, waiting for something, some kind of reprimand, a flicker of discomfort, anything. But all she did was shrug like she had heard it before, and she replied, "If you want to control someone, have your own kids." I do not know what hurt more, Kaylee's words or Danielle's. Maybe it was how casually they both delivered them. Like it was not the first time they had had this conversation when I was not around. Like they had already decided what my place was in that house, and they figured it was time I knew it, too. My stomach dropped. Not because it was the first time I had felt unwanted, but because it was the first time they made it clear they did not care that I knew. Years of biting my tongue, of trying to earn their respect, their affection, their damn acknowledgement. And that is what I got. A single sentence that confirmed every quiet fear I had tried to bury. I was not family. I was tolerated. Disposable. And Danielle knew exactly what she was saying. She delivered it with precision, like a blade slipping between my ribs. That line, "Have your own kids," it was not a suggestion. It was a reminder of every time she told me no, every time she closed the door on that dream, every time I accepted it because I thought what we had was enough. I did not say anything that night. I did not scream, did not argue. I just sat there, looking at the two people I had sacrificed nearly a decade for, and understood that they had never once seen me as one of their own. I cleared the plates in silence. I did the dishes while they watched TV like nothing had happened. Danielle did not come to bed that night. She stayed downstairs until after I had fallen asleep, or at least pretended to. And I just lay there in the dark, watching the fan spin slowly above me, thinking about every crossroads I had ignored to stay in this place. Every chance I had to leave, but did not. Every red flag I excused as a bad mood, a phase, something love could fix. But love does not fix contempt. And that is what I saw now, clear as day. They did not just resent me, they disrespected me. I lay awake all night, my chest tight, thoughts racing. I was not angry. Not yet. I was devastated. I just kept replaying their words, Danielle's words, over and over until they felt like a mantra. "You are not my real dad. Have your own kids." As if I had not tried. As if I had not begged. As if I had not been patient and kind and consistent and everything a man is supposed to be when he steps into a family that is not biologically his. And that is what made me sick. I had not just been a good man. I had bent myself out of shape to be a better one. And for what? For two people who saw me as nothing more than an ATM with a tool belt. The next morning, something inside me had shifted. Not a hot, impulsive rage, but a cold, settled clarity of the kind that only comes after you have been broken down so thoroughly there is nothing left to protect. I did not wake them up to fight. I did not throw things or scream. I just waited. I waited until they came downstairs and saw their suitcases packed neatly by the front door. Danielle blinked, confused. "What is this?" she asked. And I said it, point blank. "You are both leaving." Kaylee snorted, rolled her eyes like I was joking. Danielle tried to laugh it off. She said, "Do not be ridiculous." But I was not playing anymore. I looked her right in the face and said, "This house is in my name. I owned it before we even met. You made it clear last night that I do not belong here. So go be a family without me. But do it somewhere else." She started to protest, her voice sharp and defensive, accusing me of overreacting. She said it was just a comment and that I needed to stop being so sensitive. But I was done. I told her I had already changed the locks, that I gave her 10 years and she gave me nothing but excuses and disrespect, that I was no longer going to finance a life where I was not loved or wanted. And that is when she realized I was not bluffing. Her face fell, not with sadness. No, Danielle did not cry. She looked embarrassed, like she could not believe I finally had the guts to draw a line. Kaylee did not say a word, just stood there, arms crossed, her mouth set in that arrogant teenage pout she made whenever she thought she had won an argument. But not this time. This time I won. Not because I hurt them, but because I finally chose myself. They did not believe me. Not at first. When I told them to leave, Danielle just stood there for a full minute, mouth agape, as if trying to figure out if I had hit my head or finally lost my mind. Kaylee said nothing, just leaned against the banister, arms crossed, chewing the inside of her cheek like she always did when she was annoyed. I knew that look all too well, the same one she would get when I would ask her to clean her room or say no to something she wanted. But this was not about curfews or chores. This was about dignity. Mine. And how I had let it erode for nearly a decade under the weight of passive aggression and willful ingratitude. I looked at both of them, and for the first time, I was not afraid of the fallout. I was not anxious about how they would react. I was not trying to de-escalate or be the bigger person. I was simply done. As simple as that. No more explanations, no more chances. Finally, Danielle stepped forward and said, "Okay, you have made your point. You are upset." That condescending, patronizing tone, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. It chilled my blood. She still did not get it. She still thought this was a negotiation. "You have made your point." As if this was just a bad mood I would snap out of after some time alone and a hot shower. I shook my head and said calmly, "This is not about a point. It is about a line you crossed and never cared to step back from." I told her I had already transferred 2 months' rent into her account, so she would have time to find another place. I did not owe her that, but I did it anyway because I did not want to leave any room for them to paint me as cruel. No, this time I was taking my space back, but I was doing it cleanly. Danielle's face twisted, disbelief giving way to something more like rage. She started throwing words like darts, abandonment, selfish, ungrateful. She said I was destroying a family, and I almost laughed. Family. The family where I was told to shut up. The family where my opinion was mocked in front of a teenager who never saw me as more than a meal ticket. I told her, "This family broke the day you let her disrespect me and called it parenting." That shut her up for a second, long enough for Kaylee to finally speak. "He is being dramatic," she muttered, pulling out her phone as if none of this mattered. And that was the final straw. Not because of what she said, but because of who I no longer wanted to be after hearing it. Because she believed it. They both did. They really thought you could treat someone like a stranger for years and still be surprised when he finally got up from the table and walked away. Packing did not take them long. I did not have to force them out. Danielle tried to argue a little more, but when she realized I was not going to budge, she started gathering her things in a stony silence, tossing them into bags without care. She left the hall closet wide open, coats still hanging there, and the guest room a mess. I let them make their messy, noisy exit without lifting a finger. The silence that followed was jarring. Not peaceful, not yet, but empty. Like the moment after a storm when the air is still charged with everything unsaid. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching the street as they drove away in Danielle's SUV, the back crammed with bags and boxes. Kaylee did not even look back. Danielle did not wave, and I did not expect them to. You cannot force people to feel the loss of something they never valued in the first place. The first night alone was just strange. Not liberating, not sad, just unfamiliar, like waking up in a hotel room that looks like your bedroom but smells different. I slept with the door open, a habit I had not had since I was a kid, and every creak of the floorboards sounded louder than usual. But I did not regret it for a second. The emptiness was better than the resentment. The silence was better than their noise. I poured myself a drink, sat on the back porch with Cooper curled up at my feet, and just breathed. Really breathed. The kind of breath you do not realize you have been holding for years. I did not know what the future looked like, but for the first time in a long time, I was not afraid of it. I did not need to be needed anymore. I needed to be respected. Of course, the blowback did not take long to start. Danielle's sister messaged me the next morning, a passive-aggressive text that read, "Wow, so this is how you treat your family." I did not reply. Then came a series of vague posts on Kaylee's Instagram. You know the type. Black backgrounds with white text, like, some people are only there when it is convenient for them. And blood does not make you family, loyalty does. I did not comment. I did not even open them beyond the preview. I knew what they were doing, trying to paint me as the villain in a story they never let me write a single chapter of. But I was not playing that part anymore. They could tell whatever version made them feel better. I had nothing left to prove. A few days later, Danielle left a voicemail. Her tone was calm, too calm, like she was trying to sound civilized while still twisting the knife. She said she was disappointed in me, that I had given up on something real, that if I had an ounce of decency, I would apologize for the sake of closure. I listened to the whole message, then deleted it without a response. Because what she did not understand was that I was not just done with the relationship, I was done with the cycle. The cycle of being blamed, manipulated, and then expected to forget it all. When the dust settled, I was not coming back this time, not even for closure. Closure is what people demand when they are not ready to take responsibility. And I was done taking all of theirs. I started making changes immediately. I confirmed the locks were new, donated the clothes and makeup Danielle had left in the bathroom, and took down the family photos, replacing them with art I actually liked. Abstract, cool, quiet. It felt like a reboot, like peeling back layers of someone else's expectations until I found the shape of my own life underneath. Friends started reaching out, some curious, some concerned. I told them the truth. I spent 10 years trying to be part of a family that never wanted me in the first place. And when I finally understood that, I did the only thing I could do. I let them go, and then I let myself start over. I knew they would not go quietly. People like Danielle do not just exit a man's life. They try to rewrite his part in it on their way out. It started with small things. A mutual friend unfollowed me on Facebook. Someone from Danielle's yoga class who barely knew me beyond a polite hello at barbecues left a comment on one of my photos that said, "Hope karma treats you the way you treated your family." I did not even know how to respond, mostly because I did not know what version of the story they had heard. I could picture Danielle, sitting in a coffee shop, feigning heartbreak and spinning the narrative with just enough half-truths to make me sound cold and unhinged. I could hear the phrases in my head. He just snapped. I was always walking on eggshells. He never accepted my daughter. That last one would sting the most. Not because it was true, but because it was the story she always wanted people to believe, that I was too hard, too strict, too much of a man to raise a daughter who was not mine. But it was not just her. Kaylee joined in too, subtly at first, posting cryptic TikToks and sad selfies with captions like, "Trust is earned, not given." Teenage angst disguised as wisdom. And of course, her friends ate it up. Hearts, words of support, and more than one comment about men who want to play dad and then give up. I did not argue. I did not post my side. That was the hardest part, knowing that silence would be interpreted as guilt. But I was not playing defense anymore. I was not going to get dragged into an online war over a house I paid for and a family who resented me. Let them talk. Let them spin. I was done managing appearances to make other people comfortable. Still, it got to me more than I expected. The way people I had known for years suddenly grew distant. The invitations stopped coming, the texts slowed down. And it was not just strangers. Even my own cousin called to ask, "Hey man, what really happened?" Danielle said you kicked them out with no warning. That enraged me more than anything. That he would believe I was the kind of man who would put a woman and a child out without reason, without build-up, without provocation. But I guess that is how it works. When men set boundaries, especially where women and children are involved, they get branded as cruel, selfish, even abusive. Nobody wants to hear about the years of emotional erosion that led to that boundary. They just want to know why the man left and when he plans to apologize. It was about a week into the chaos when I got a call from someone I did not expect. Sierra, Danielle's younger sister. We did not talk much outside of holidays, but I had always liked her. She was sharp, observant, and did not waste time on small talk. When I answered, she wasted no time. "I just want you to know," she said. "I get it." That was it. No pleasantries, no lead-in, just those 4 words. And my chest almost collapsed under the weight of a relief I did not know I was holding. I sat down on the couch, the same corner Danielle used to occupy like a throne, and asked, "Get what?" Sierra sighed, long and deep. "I know how Danielle can be. I love her. She is my sister. But she never wanted a partner. She wanted a provider she could manage. And she never really saw how much you gave." I did not say anything, just stood there, stunned, nodding into the silence as if she could see me. She told me about the times Danielle had complained to the family, twisting things to make herself the martyr. How she never mentioned how long I waited to have a child with her. How she left out that I was the one doing school runs, paying bills, and fixing appliances. "She told my mom you were cold," Sierra said. "But I saw the way you looked at Kaylee. You tried." That word, tried, meant more than she knew. Because trying was all I ever did, and no one had acknowledged it until that moment. I thanked her sincerely, and she replied, "Do not thank me. Just do not let them make you feel crazy for doing what you needed to do." Then she hung up, and just like that, I felt a little less alone in my own story. That night, I finally let myself feel it all. The rage, the grief, that strange sense of freedom tangled up with guilt. I poured a drink, bourbon, something I had not touched in a while, and sat outside with Cooper again, looking at the fence I spent 2 weekends building for a family that never thanked me for it. And I cried. Not hard, not desperate, just a slow, quiet release of everything I had held in for years. All the swallowed frustrations, the unseen sacrifices, the unspoken disrespect. It was not just about being torn down. It was about never being seen at all. I cried for the man I tried to be and for the years I spent convincing myself it was enough. In the days that followed, something shifted. I stopped checking their social media. I stopped opening messages from people who did not bother to ask for my side. I started sleeping better, deeper. The kind of sleep that comes when your nervous system finally stops waiting for the next impact. I rearranged the living room, bought a new coffee table, and threw out the old curtains Danielle insisted on keeping even though I hated them. They were not big changes, but they felt like declarations. I was not erasing the past. I was reclaiming the space that had been poisoned. Every small change was a reminder, this is mine now. My home. My peace. I even started dating someone. Hannah, a woman I met through a friend. Nothing serious yet, just dinners and long conversations. She was different, curious. She asked real questions and listened to the answers. One night, I told her about Danielle. Not the whole story, but enough. She did not flinch or judge. She just said, "That must have been exhausting." And for the first time, I did not feel like I had to defend myself. I did not have to explain why I stayed or justify why I left. She accepted that both could be true, that I tried my hardest, and that I was right to walk away. Standing at the altar with Hannah, I felt something I had not felt in years. Not nerves, not fear, but certainty. A quiet, rooted peace. The sun was warm on my back. The breeze carried a faint scent of lilacs. And every face in the crowd was someone I had chosen to let into this new chapter of my life. There was no Kaylee, no Danielle, no ghost from the life I had clawed my way out of. Just people who saw me not as a paycheck or a stand-in, but as a man with value. Hannah's hands were steady in mine. Her eyes never left my face. And in that moment, I realized that love, the kind that does not make you beg for recognition, does not leave you guessing. It just is. It holds you. It grounds you. It meets you where you are and does not demand you shrink. We kept the ceremony small. 30 guests, max. I did not want pomp or spectacle, just intention. Hannah wore a pale blue dress instead of white because she said she never liked following rules just for tradition's sake. That was one of the first things I loved about her. She did things with meaning, or she did not do them at all. When we exchanged vows, hers were simple, honest. She did not promise perfection. She promised effort. And I knew she meant it because that is how she had always been. Hannah never made me feel like I had to audition for her love. She did not make me prove I was worthy. She just opened the door, and when I walked through, she let me stay. It was enough. More than enough. And for the first time in my life, I was not afraid to let myself be loved. In the days leading up to the wedding, I found myself thinking more about Danielle. Not with longing, or even anger, but with curiosity. I wondered if she had heard, if she knew I was moving on, if she cared at all. There was still a very deep part of me that wanted to believe she felt something. Not regret, maybe, but acknowledgement. Like maybe she finally saw that I was not the villain she made me out to be, that I was not cruel, just tired. And I think that is what people like her struggle with most. Not that you leave, but that you leave without drama, without pleading, without leaving a door cracked open behind you. I debated for a few days whether I should reach out before the wedding. Not to reconcile, God no, but to clear the air, to draw the final line in the sand. Hannah never asked me to. She was not threatened by my past, but I think she understood that some doors need to be closed intentionally, not just walked away from. So I sent Danielle a short, neutral text. No bitterness, no passive aggression, just facts. I told her I was getting married, that I wished her well, that I hoped, in time, she could see how much I had tried and how deeply I had needed to choose myself. In the end, I closed it by saying, there is no anger in my heart, just distance. And that is how it will stay. She never replied. And that, in itself, was the reply I expected. After the ceremony, during the reception, one of Hannah's cousins clapped me on the arm and said, "You look like you have been through some shit." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the most honest thing anyone had said all day. I gave him the short version. The marriage, the stepdaughter, the eviction. He nodded, took a sip of his drink, and said, "Glad you got out." And I realized that is exactly what it felt like. An escape. Not from people, but from a life where I was constantly shrinking, where love was conditional, transactional, and used as a weapon. I had spent so long trying to be enough for people who had already decided I was not. Now, I was with someone who saw me before I even opened my mouth. That kind of grace. It felt like air after a decade underwater. A few days after the wedding, I got a text from a number I did not recognize. It just said, "Saw the pictures. You look happy. She seems nice." No name, but I knew it was Kaylee. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let her words fade into the void like mine had so many times. But another part of me, the older, more tired part, understood that this was as close as she would ever get to offering an olive branch. So I replied, "Not a novel, just I am. I hope you find the same someday." And that was it. We exchanged nothing more. No calls, no apologies, just that brief flicker of acknowledgement before we faded back into our separate lives. It was not a reconciliation. It was just reality. Now, months later, our house feels different. Warmer. Hannah does not walk on eggshells around me. She asks me what I think, not just when it is convenient for her, but because she wants to know. We talk about having kids, not in a way that is heavy with pressure, but with excitement, with hope. I do not know what the future holds. And for the first time, that does not scare me. Because I know who I am. I know what I will not tolerate. I know the signs of erosion when they are just starting to whisper. And I will never let them take root again. I did not just leave Danielle and Kaylee behind. I reclaimed myself in the process. And that man, the one who finally chose peace over proximity, is the man I get to be every single day. I look back sometimes, not with regret, but with clarity. I see the man I was, tired, hurt, constantly reaching for scraps of validation. And I feel for him. I am sorry for him. But I do not miss him. Because now, I have built something new, something real. And it did not come from sacrifice. It came from boundaries. From walking away when staying meant abandoning myself. And if there is one thing I have learned, it is this. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is get up from the table when love is no longer being served. Comment. I know this story carries a lot of weight, so thank you for taking the time to experience it with me. It serves as a powerful reminder that your value is never defined by how much you can endure in silence. Setting a boundary is not an act of aggression. It is a profound act of self-preservation and respect. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a situation that repeatedly asks you to shrink yourself. True kindness must include being kind to yourself, even when it is the harder choice to make. You cannot be responsible for the happiness of those who are not willing to meet you halfway. Healing begins when you decide you deserve peace more than you need to be understood by those who hurt you. The empty space left behind is not a void, but a clean slate to build a life that is genuinely yours. I hope you find the strength to choose your own well-being. Remember that you have every right to leave any table where respect is no longer being served. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.